Is it still worth becoming a mechanic in 2024? This is a question I get all the time, and it generally comes from a place of someone who's young, super into cars, and wanting to know if fixing cars is something they should consider making a career out of. But in today's world, is that really a good idea? Well, we're gonna answer that question today, and a little bit later in the video, we're gonna hear from some really good friends of mine and get their point of view on whether you should be a mechanic in 2024 or maybe find another career path. Now, real quick, I actually started my automotive career selling cars. Then I went to UTI in Illinois, did some training with Volkswagen specifically, and worked at a dealership for about 15 years. Now, in that time, some things have wildly changed in the automotive industry, and sadly, there's a handful of things that are still stuck in the before time. Now, I also did a very similar video to this one way back in 2018, right when Elon launched that Tesla Roadster, whatever it was, and we're in a pretty different landscape in the automotive industry, especially post-COVID. A little bit later, I'll also mention how we can use that COVID time to our advantage and get some insight on how a shop actually operates. Before we go real deep into this topic, if you are 100% set on becoming a mechanic, or on the flip side, 100% against it, great. I think that's awesome, and I in no way, shape, or form would ever try and change your mind. You shouldn't let anybody do that. In fact, if you search, should I become a mechanic, you're gonna find an overwhelming amount of negativity around that profession. But is it really that bad? Well, yes, but also no. I feel confident in saying that the automotive industry has earned its reputation. Everyone, and I mean everyone, has a bad mechanic story, and that does impact the ability for a mechanic or a technician to do their job. Personally, I liked that uphill battle. It gave me the opportunity to win over a customer and earn one of those customers for life. On that note, it might sound like I'm pretty negative about the automotive industry at the beginning, but we need to address those issues and get them out of the way. And don't worry, I'll get to some of the upsides and the just incredible amount of awesome opportunities that exist in this industry in a little bit. So we're gonna break this down into a handful of categories that, according to Indeed.com, are the most important things when looking for a job. And I've cut some and added some and rearranged it a little bit so that it applies a little bit more to us as technicians. All right, first up, let's talk about salary. This is the place where I think the majority of the concerns and complaints are. After doing some research, I found the average salary for a technician in the United States is about $55,000 a year. That probably counts for the quick express service type places, as well as the really high-end diagnostic techs or the guys that work on super high-end stuff. The average is $55K a year, which is not a bad living just on its own. Let's compare that though to the average salary of a plumber, which is $63K. So in my opinion, even today, and I'm pretty sure I said this back in 2018, we are behind the times when it comes to pay. Now, I know a bunch of technicians that make well over $100,000 a year. A couple of those guys are actually at the old dealership that I worked at, which I never made $100,000 a year, so good on them. To me, that means we are improving, but I think we're still a bit behind when it comes to working on modern cars, how complicated they are, and how much you really have to know to fix a modern car. The days of the burnout high school kids taking shop class because they were too stupid to take anything else, well, one, probably were never real to begin with, but two, are so far in the history, it's barely worth acknowledging. Cars are hard, and that doesn't even account for the fact that you gotta have X thousands of dollars of tool that you roll in on your first day of work just to do anything. That is the only role in the whole building, whether it's a dealer or an independent shop or whatever, that you need to provide your own stuff. Everyone else gets to roll in on their first day, and all they really need is a pen to get their job going. Most other places in the world, shops provide tools, so that's an America thing more so than everywhere else in the world. That also doesn't account for the thing that I think most technicians hate the most, which is the flat rate system. So real quick on the flat rate system and the way that works, a job pays what it pays no matter how long it takes. So for example, a brake job might pay 1 hour. If I do that brake job in 20 minutes because I've done it a million times or I've bought a really expensive tool, I still get paid 1 hour. So if you make $25 an hour, you can do the math. So I won when it took me 20 minutes. I lost when it took me 2 hours. Flat rate and really technician pay as a whole is really complicated. There's no just like, this is the solution and every technician should get paid in this way. Now, I made way more money on flat rate in my career than I would have if I had just been paid a salary, but I was super lucky. I worked at a great dealership with a great boss that overall was pretty well managed, and Volkswagen paid pretty well under warranty, so that also helped too. But if you're not calibrated as a technician to work on flat rate, you're gonna find it hard to be successful on that pay plan. You work at a shop that is not properly managed, flat rate can be a nightmare. Imagine having $10,000 worth of tools in your bay, going into work, working on no cars all day. You get paid no money. I mean, you don't make any dollars and you still had to go there. Now, certain states have different laws and it can get a little bit more complicated than that, but I think for most technicians, flat rate is the #1 complaint that they have. There's other challenges when it comes to salary, and I don't think there is a perfect pay plan that works for every shop across the board, but I do think that the management of whatever pay plan exists needs to be good, or you're gonna have problems. Next up is hours and work-life balance. If flat rate is the #1 concern, then work-life balance and hours worked is probably #2. Now, let's be real though, this is consistent with almost every blue-collar job. In fact, there's that joke where someone complains about like working a regular 40-hour work week, and the blue-collar dude says something like, I remember my first part-time job, which I've laughed at, but it's true. I consistently worked well past 40 hours a week during my career, and the hours that you work and the work-life balance that you have definitely go hand in hand, and they can be pretty difficult to manage. I wasn't very good at it as a technician, and I'm better today than I've ever been, but this is still something that I do struggle with too. One of the cool things though is for most of my career, we worked a 4-day work week. So 6:30 in, 6:30 out, but only 4 days a week. And because of that schedule, I actually had a bunch of days off in a row, which really did help. Now, work-life balance and hours worked, what that looks like is different for everyone. What's perfect for you might be awful for me. I always think of it this way, right? For some people, going into an office and sitting behind a desk, clacking at a computer or whatever is great for them. To me, I can't do it. I've tried, it doesn't work. I don't function that way. Conversely, some people might think working on cars all day, bent over like this or up like this or in any other weird position sounds like the worst thing ever, and they'll happily sit in their air-conditioned office, clacking away on their keyboard, and that's what works for them. So whatever it is for you is totally fine. Just make sure you're taking that into account. You need to figure out what works for you and make sure that you're prioritizing that. For the next one, Indeed.com put this as 2 separate ones, but I'm crushing them together, and that's work environment and your coworkers. Work environment is such an important part of this puzzle, really, something that we often give less credit and credence to than we really should. So I briefly mentioned it a minute ago, but I worked at an awesome dealership. It wasn't perfect. We, of course, had our own internal problems and then the external problems of 2 corporate offices yapping in your ear, but overall, it was an incredible experience. It wasn't until I was deep into my automotive career that I realized how rare that actually is. I truly believe today we have more shops that are high-level, great shops to actually work at than we've ever had before. In fact, you're gonna hear from 2 shop owners a little later. I guarantee you they run shops that are just like that. However, we still have bad ones, and if you're good as a technician or you're working hard to be good, you have no business working at a bad shop. There's too many good ones out there to settle for working at one that is not a good place to work. Toolboxes have wheels for a reason. You might have to pack your stuff up and go a couple blocks, couple miles, maybe change brands, going from VW to Audi, for example. And a new, fresh environment can work wonders for your attitude and your mindset. You might just work at a crappy shop and need that change of environment to show you that industry can actually be pretty awesome. Now, as much as I just said I worked for a great dealership, great management, and all that, there were some people that I worked with that shouldn't have been there. They shouldn't either have been technicians, or they shouldn't have worked for the brand, or for whatever one reason or another. This field is not for everyone. It's really not. In fact, there were a couple of these guys that after they left, everything about the shop got better. Even though we were shorthanded, the whole vibe of the shop improved because that one coworker wasn't there, bringing the whole vibe of the shop down. Next up is growth. This is a tough topic for me. So much so that this actually almost drove me out of the car repair business completely. Very early in my technician journey, my goal was to be a master certified Volkswagen technician. To me, that was the career goal. So worked my brains out to try and get there, and 7 years after I started at the dealership, I finally received that magical, mystical award, Master Certified Volkswagen Technician. And do you know what changed for me? Absolutely nothing. Well, nothing except for the fact that whenever I didn't know the answer to something, or I made a mistake or got something wrong, I got the phrase, "But you're a master technician," thrown in my face over and over again. So I don't know what I expected, right? I don't know if I expected to have just all the accolades and awards and praise, or if I just expected things to be different because I achieved this goal. And the truth of the matter is, absolutely no one cared other than me. Now, while growth is something unique and different for each one of us, I have some rules that will apply no matter where you start and where your end goal actually is. The main thing is, it's all on you, 100%. I have met tons of technicians that say, I want to learn the newest technology. I can't go to training because my boss won't send me. Let me be clear. I think that shop managers, service managers, whoever's in charge of the training for a technician at a shop should be sending technicians to training. However, that is absolutely not an excuse not to learn and not to get training. Look at it this way. Features that used to only be optioned up on really high-line cars are now standard. I like to use adaptive cruise control and all the driver assist stuff as a really good example. It used to be that you only got it on the $100,000 cars. Now, Corollas have it standard. And what that means for a technician is you need to understand how all that stuff works. And if you don't know how those systems work, you're not only not going to be able to fix and repair those, but think of the other repairs you either can't do, won't be able to do, or worse, you do and don't fix the secondary systems involved. Technicians that don't put a heavy emphasis on learning, training, and staying up to date with technology find themselves quickly outdated. And not like the good outdated or the cool outdated where like you're the one dude that knows how to reset a CIS injection system. More in the you're gonna be stuck mounting and balancing of tires for the rest of your career kind of way. I'm really trying hard not to go off the deep end about this training, about this education, but this is one of the most important pieces to being a technician if you're not working hard, like stupid hard to get better and stay up to date. How are you going to exist as a good technician in a modern car repair world? And to me, that feels like a really awful place to be a technician. So when we take all of that into account, and the fact there's such a huge push to electric cars, and the fact that all the gas car service intervals are much, much longer than they've ever been, is it worth becoming a mechanic in 2024? Well, my answer is yes. It still can be a great time to become a technician if you are built for it. This industry takes a huge toll on your body, on your mind, and on your spirit. So if you're not built for this industry, you're gonna really struggle and have a hard time. If you're gonna strive to be at the front of all the new technologies that come out, if you're gonna strive to be the absolute best technician you can possibly be, if you understand that you are taking, in general anyway, the second most expensive thing that someone buys, and you're becoming responsible for it, if you can do those things and more, you have the potential for a great career, to make a great living, and to do something that really does make a difference for people. And that, my friends, is awesome. One of my favorite things about being a technician was being able to be a hero for someone. The poor lady's car that broke down who's crying in the waiting room, and you swoop in, fix the car, and send them on their way. It's such an awesome feeling. It was one of my biggest driving things. I could come in, I could fix it, and really, really help them set their life back in order. Okay, let's hear from our friends and see what their point of view is. Then I'm gonna swing back and give you some must-follow tips to make sure you kick your career off as a technician in a successful way.
I'm often asked, would I do it all over again? Would I be an automotive technician? And the answer is pretty clearly, yeah. And there's a lot of reasons for it, but primarily because I love working on cars and I love using deductive reasoning to work with the automobile and to find the problem and to solve the issue. Are there things I would have done differently? Absolutely. Especially when it comes to shop ownership. I would have handled that much differently. I would have learned to be a business owner first, as opposed to thinking that being a technician was going to solve the problems of the auto repair business. I probably would have gone to a community college where you can get a great education. Sometimes it's completely free, and if not, it's an extremely low cost compared to the other options out there. I would have been an apprentice somewhere and learned more about the business and learned how the business is supposed to work. I would have definitely jumped in and gone to some of the trainings like the ASTA Expo, Vision in Kansas City, anything that I could get out to get some of this training so I would have the upper hand, if you will, when it comes to repairing automobiles. You know, are there challenges in the automotive space? Absolutely. There's challenges in every space. I often hear folks talk about other trades and they say, oh, automotive's so much worse than those. But the reality of that is this: every single trade has that. If you do a little bit of research, you hear it in HVAC, you hear it in electrical, you hear it in plumbing, you hear it in all the trades. I think that there are challenges associated with every single profession that you can go into, and there's a lot of people in each one of those professions who say, hey, I want out. I believe this is the golden age of the automotive technician. And the reason I say that is because we're seeing the best wages, the best benefits, the best hours, the best environments that we've seen in years. And I believe it's going to continue to get better. Now, all that being said, I wouldn't continue to bet on these extremely high wages and some of the offers that we're seeing. I would go into this with a dampened spirit, if you will. I would approach this understanding I may not earn the money that they tell me I'm going to earn up front. And I'm not saying that that's okay. Please don't misunderstand. I do think it's important to be honest and transparent with people, especially when you're hiring them. I'm just warning you. There are people out there who'll say you can earn $120,000. And that is very true. You can. But you have to work up to that. The environment you're in has to support that. And so there's some variables to it. There's things that I probably would handle a little bit differently. But at this point in time, absolutely. I would jump in there any day and become an automotive technician all over again.
Yes, absolutely. I think you should become a mechanic in 2024. It has supported myself and my family for over 15 years, my shop now for 4 years, and I have absolutely loved every minute of it. Has it been easy? No, not by any stretch of the imagination, but what I love about it the most is it's constantly changing and it's never the same. It never gets boring, which is what I love about it. And to me, I don't know, I feel like one of my greatest passions or greatest rewards, I guess I should say, is being able to have something broken come into my shop and then leave fixed and have a happy customer. There's no better feeling than that, in my opinion, in the automotive industry, is knowing that you took care and helped someone in that situation on their vehicle. Try to learn as much as you can. Try to use YouTube, utilize online sources. There's so much free information out there that you can get from plenty of sources that will help you out and help you learn and understand just mechanics and electronic fundamentals and all of those things. As I mentioned earlier, this industry never stops changing. You're constantly growing and bettering yourself. And so to strive and be the best technician doesn't limit you. Literally the sky is the ceiling as far as what you can become and your capabilities can bring you as far as being a technician in the industry. Your pay, your skill set, your opportunities, all of that is open wide. There's tons of opportunities out there for apprenticeship programs. Napa has an apprenticeship program. There's lots of shops out there that do apprenticeship programs. What better way to get into an industry than get paid to learn? And that is what I would recommend to becoming a mechanic in 2024. All right, that was super awesome of those guys to take a few minutes out of their day and share their points of view with us. I'll link up all their stuff down in the description. Now, Now, let's get into the 5 things that you need to know before you get into the automotive industry. First up, find a shop with an apprenticeship program. Even to this day, there are still shops that will hire a new guy, show him where the bathroom is, and then toss him out to the wolves, a lot of times on flat rate. If you're new and a shop wants to start you out on flat rate, that's it. End of conversation. Out, find somewhere else because you deserve better. Find a shop that has a laid out training program that will help you get to where you want to go. Otherwise, you're gonna have a lot harder time getting to each next level because you don't even know what the next levels are. If you run a shop and you don't have an apprenticeship program, you gotta figure out how to find one. That may be one of the reasons anyway you're struggling to find technicians. The next one sort of piggybacks off that. Forget the brand, find the right shop. You may love Volkswagens. That may be your heart and soul and your passion. That does not mean you need to be a Volkswagen technician. You could be like my buddy CJ, be a VW guy through and through, and work for Chevrolet. It doesn't matter. What does matter is the shop that you work in, the vibe, the culture, the structure, whatever word you want to use. That is far more important, in my opinion, than the kind of cars that get repaired at that facility. But I will say, whatever brand it is, make sure that they have all the right tools. In today's world, if a shop is, say, a VW Audi shop and they don't have Otis, to me that's a red flag. If they're a BMW shop, they don't have ISTA, to me that's a red flag. That stuff has become almost 100% necessary in today's world. Next up, and I've seen new technicians and experienced ones really struggle with this, you've gotta understand that you will make mistakes. Any technician that says, I don't make mistakes, is either retired or a liar, but more likely they're a liar. Every technician out there makes mistakes and will make mistakes if they're doing anything worth anything. They will happen. Fess up to it, identify it, and make it right, and try not to make that mistake a second time. But don't let that ruin your day, or worse, ruin your career. Next up, remember, you have more leverage and negotiating power all up until the point of you say, yes, I'll take that job. In my negotiations with a shop, I would want to know what they did during COVID. Some shops, you're on your own. We're not doing nothing. My old dealer group paid the guys like an average of their previous year, so if they didn't make any hours because no cars came in, they still might have made 42 hours a week. That is something you can use to identify how a shop treats its technicians during hard times. Get creative. Maybe they only pay $20 an hour to start, but maybe you can negotiate a $2,000 tool voucher or another week's vacation or extra paid training. Use all of those things. Tools, training, time off, whatever, dollar per hour, all of that. I know if I were interviewing you and you're like, hey, what if you send me to California for this really cool thing that I didn't know anything about? Not only am I more likely to do it, but I'm gonna be really impressed. And to me, that shows like you've taken initiative to learn about and find cool training things that apply directly to your job. So ask them. The worst they're gonna say is no, then ask for something else. And finally, once you get that job, if you find that you're not in the right spot, don't be afraid to leave, and really, don't be afraid to get out of the industry. I know so many super talented technicians that don't love what they do. These guys are far smarter than I could ever pretend to be, and they feel like they're stuck and like they can't do anything else. If you've worked at a shop for 15 years and you gotta roll your toolbox out to go do something else and basically hit the reset button, that's scary. But you know what's worse? Is another 15 years of being miserable at the same crap job that you didn't like for the last 10 years on top of it. I know it can be hard, but understand as a technician, you know a ton of stuff, right? That doesn't just apply to cars. Maybe you're an automotive technician and you hate it and you're tired of doing it, and you go work on forklifts in a warehouse. Or you go, like my buddy Brian, How to Automotive, go work on big diesel stuff. But guys, if you're a technician, you know so much stuff. There is no reason for you to be stuck in some place that is absolutely miserable. You're too talented to work at a crappy shop or in an industry that you don't want to be a part of. I love the automotive industry. It's been very good to me in my career. But as I've said many times today, it is not for everyone. Do not feel like you're a failure if you made the bad choice about working somewhere. It's okay. And if you're worried that someone's going to think you're a failure, don't. Because they probably don't think anything about you anyway. You need to worry about what you got going on and your own happiness in that department. So that's what I think. It's still worth becoming a mechanic in 2024. Maybe we'll revisit this in another 6 years and see how many EVs are on the road, or if hydrogen's the wave of the future or not. So with that, I'm out. Have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you again next time.